Welcome to Long Lost Friends. I'm Elizabeth Eve King.
And I'm Andrea Goyan. Elizabeth and I used to be in an improv comedy group together back when we were 19, and then we lost touch.
A few years ago, we found each other and discovered we're both painters,
Performers,
animal lovers,
and Pilates teachers.
and naturalists.
And Elizabeth, I'm not a naturalist. I love nature. Does that
counts? That counts. The point is, we're
long lost friends.
And
we're both award-winning fiction writers.
After one of my stories appeared in MetaStellar, we started this show.
MetaStellar, for those of you who don't know, is an online magazine, and we publish original science fiction, horror, and fantasy. There's a link below, you can check it out. So today we are so excited to have Shelby Van Pelt joining us. Shelby's debut novel, Remarkably Bright Creatures, was released on May 3rd, 2022, and is now available from Echo HarperCollins. Chosen by independent booksellers as an indie next pick, Remarkably Bright Creatures has also earned a star review from Booklist, a Buzz Books highlight from Publishers Marketplace, and most anticipated nods from Marie Claire, Glamour, Good Housekeeping, Parade, and more. Shelby was recently named as one of 13 authors to watch in 2022 by BookPage. Her short fiction has been published by Trampset, Sudoku, TLDR, and others. So welcome, Shelby. It's so great to have you here.
Yeah, we're so glad to see you, but first show us your pets.
Oh, this one's a little bit thorny right now.
Oh,
this is Sahana.
She's beautiful.
She is, and she knows it.
What coloring, wow.
Yeah, beautiful. So much white for, I mean, she's just a traditional calico, right?
She is. Oh my gosh, I'm like covered in cat hair.
That's how we live. Elizabeth and I were just talking about that the other day. We live with a coat of fur.
Yeah, I was trying to introduce it as a new style. You know, people wear like camel hair and stuff. Well, we just need cat hair is what I'm thinking.
There you go.
No, it's everywhere. Yeah, she's just a calico. She's actually litter mates with my other cat. They were like backyard kittens in this feral cat colony in my old neighborhood. And we scooped them up, and they were foster foster cats that were going to be adopted out, and then that never happened. So
and they were adopted out.
Yeah, exactly. So we won't call them foster fails.
We're delighted that you could come back and talk to us today. And today Shelby is going to talk to us about query letters and querying an agent for a first-time author or for someone who has their first-time novel. So yay, I'm excited. Makes me nervous, thought of querying an agent.
Yes.
It's nerve-wracking, definitely.
How did you prepare? How did you write? Did you have a group of people who helped you, or?
And then how did you decide who to send to too?
And how did you, oh, sorry, too many questions.
I did. Yeah, I had a really great group of writer friends who were all kind of going through the same process together. So we did a lot of reads of each other's query letters and a lot of back and forth that was super, super helpful. Yeah, I think, and this is, I think, a pretty common thing, especially for first-time authors. I think I spent more time writing and rewriting that dang query letter than I did like writing the last, several chapters of the book. It's such a, you think, oh, it's just, I'm going to write a letter and talk about my book, but you have to be so, you're selling your book. This is the first time that you're going to really try to sell your work. And, the agents, most of them, when it comes across their desk, it's going to an assistant who's going to scan through them. And, they're looking for reasons to reject you. And that's not because they're bad people, but because they have hundreds and hundreds of these things, and there's got to be some way to cut down the volume. So it's nerve-wracking, it's putting yourself out there, but it can be very rewarding. So it's what you've got to do.
So how did you? I think Elizabeth asked when we were throwing two lobbing questions at you. Elizabeth was asking how you decided who to send to, and I'm going to lob a second one there. And how many did you send before you started getting positive responses?
Well, I looked at their manuscript wish lists, which is most agents will have them on their website. There's also a MSWL hashtag that you can search on Twitter. And I really tried to find agents that were a fit for the specific types of books, the specific type of book that I was writing. I found authors whose work I admired and looked in the acknowledgement section to figure out who their agent was, and then looked up that agency. I hesitate to even say this in the company of writers, but I got very, very lucky and found an agent on one of my first cold queries.
Beautiful. Good.
Yeah.
Congratulations. That's
and
hope for all of us.
It's like, this is like, we don't talk about Bruno or whatever. Like, it's not something that, most people spend more time than that.
Yeah, but it also means that somehow for that moment in time, you found the magic formula for your book and you in that moment. So tell us, what was the magic formula?
Well, I also got extremely, extremely lucky in that a little show called My Octopus Teacher, which you probably have heard of or seen, won an Academy Award, had just come out when I started querying my novel. So I hit the luck jackpot in having basically a fictionalized version of that type of story. Well, that was just in the zeitgeist, on everyone's mind, super hot. So, like anything in life, there's a combination of skill and luck, and I had luck, and a huge amount of luck on my timing. Yeah, so I think that was a big part of the formula. And then on the query letter, I think the thing that I found hard to write when I was first starting out, and what I see in a lot of query letters that I read for other people to help them, they put too much in the query letter. It's like you want to write a summary of your book and like, oh, but I have this and that too. And you really have to peel it back to just, all you're trying to get them to do is look at the next page. All you're trying to do is get past that first hurdle. And I think people tend to want to be, faithful to what the book, all of its characters, what it actually is, at the expense of selling the idea. Get them to read those sample chapters, and then that's where they'll see all of the characters. Or
is it more like a log line then?
It's very similar to a log line, and yeah, it's a teaser. The other thing that I learned that I had a hard time getting through my thick skull on the first few attempts to do this was, you don't want to tell the whole story. You want to just really get to almost like the, that inflection point of okay, here's the setup, here's the stakes. We don't need to tell them what happens in the query letter. We want them to read the book to find out that. And so, people, I think, including me, my agent gave me this feedback, when we had the query letter that then turned into a pitch that was going to go to these editors when it was out on submission. She was like, look, we need to just peel this back even more. So yeah, I think when just, think of what would make you, it's almost like when you pick up a book and you read the back cover or the jacket, what is going to make you pick up that book? And that's what the vibe that you want your query letter to have.
So did you introduce your octopus immediately? Was he or was Tova, the other main character, the lead in?
Interestingly, when I wrote my query letter, I had Marcellus at the octopus as the lead in. And I think that was the right call for that time. When we eventually transformed the query letter, which then became kind of this pitch that went out on submission to all of the editors, which eventually really became kind of the jacket copy. My agent suggested switching it to have Tova be the main lead-in, and explaining, that she was this older woman, she was a widow, had this loss, and then she crosses paths with this giant Pacific octopus and so forth.
Yeah, I mean, having read the book, I think that what you're saying makes sense. Like trying to get the agent initially with the octopus is such an unusual, like, oh, what's this about? But I think that the story really, for me, was her journey was the greater part of the story. And I don't mean greater, better. I mean greater, it was the bigger part of the story than Marcellus's journey, though he takes a fabulous journey, you know.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's funny. It's a book about an octopus, but it's also not a book about an octopus.
Right.
But yeah, I mean, I guess the other danger in that leading with Marcellus, I guess a risk that I took was, are people read this and just think, I think I mentioned before that my agent's assistant wrote in the margin, this is either brilliant or bananas, and probably a lot of people would just say bananas and pass.
So how long was your query letter? How long should they be?
Just one page. We really want to keep it short and sweet. Again, these agents are reading a lot of these. I think there's a good argument for just, you don't need to have all of the, please consider my work types of filler. Just, dear agent, bam, right into your hook and your pitch. Little blurb at the end. You always want to have comp titles in there. I had two. I used, as I mentioned before, Kevin Wilson's Nothing to See Here, which I thought was a great comp for the specifically weird type of book that I was trying to query. And I used also a Frederick Backman book. He's a Swedish author who wrote A Man Called Ove. I used his book. How am I blanking on the title of his book? It features an older protagonist, which is another aspect. So yeah, and the comps don't have to be like perfect matches to your book, but just something to give them a flavor of what they're getting.
That's good to know, because I'm always like, what is a good comp for things? It's really hard to find them sometimes. So
I spent so much time. I mean, the process is so time consuming. I guess that's another tip, is just, make the time for it and give it the time it deserves, because it is very time consuming to track down all of these things.
And then working with other writers who are either successful at it like you, or someone who is starting out and trying to figure out together what can work, because sending it blind would be as crazy as sending out a first draft of anything.
Yeah.
It needs work.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Elizabeth, have you sent out many query letters for things other than, I mean, short story stuff, but I mean, you've written novels, so.
Yes, I have done a lot of query letters, and sometimes it's so frustrating just to try and get that grab in the first little bit. I think log lines are really helpful, because that's just instantly gets it in, and maybe with some comps. Like I have my detective, I think I just changed it to something like Philip K. Dick meets Philip Marlowe. Because it's kind of like it's science fiction and detective. So he's very Philip Marlowe, but he's struck by lightning, which, changes things.
Oh, that's cool. I want to read it.
Oh, thanks.
Fascinating.
It makes it changes his biophotons in his brain. So he starts seeing other worlds, but he doesn't know what he's seeing, because I didn't know what he was seeing for a while.
Yeah, there's a term that I feel like it's tossed around by agents and editors, but they like things that are high concept. And it's just basically that. It's like when you think of a log line, can I explain this in a sentence or two in a way in which people immediately go, oh yeah, I get it. For my book, it's a widow makes friends with a giant Pacific octopus in the aquarium where she works. And you're kind of like, okay, like I see where that's going. There's no ambiguity to what that book is going to be about. You hear it a lot, I think, in movies and film too, things that are high concept. Doesn't mean they're highbrow necessarily. They're just easy for audiences to get.
Get the concept right away. Yeah, that's so
And
Yeah.
having a query letter that that reflects your book as a high concept work, I think is key.
So how much do you think in a query letter, because I'm just thinking this while you're talking, how much do you want your query letter to reflect the flavor of your writing voice, in a sense? Like if it's a comedy, I mean, do you skew it to be sort of to try to capture that? Because that sounds just frightening to me, having to do all that. But I mean, do you think that you try to make it have a flavor?
Absolutely. I think there's definitely a place for voice in the query letter. You want to avoid being kitschy. I don't think it goes over well. For instance, if I were to write a query letter as Marcellus, the octopus, trying to pitch a book, no, like that, you gotta follow the rules. But within those rules, definitely, I think in my query letter, I had both Marcellus and Tova in there. And I tried to get a little bit of of the way that they would see things or describe things in the way that I was describing it in the query letter.
So do you have any good, like, don't do things with query letters? You kind of touched a little bit, but do you have any like things you saw, even with your friends when you were working on things that were like, oh, no, that's going to scare them away? Do you have any don't do notes?
Don't give away the ending. You don't need to go all the way to the end of your plot. Just go to where that kind of the hook ends. Don't put in vague, ambiguous questions. Will they find the meaning of life? No, like it, that's, you got to be specific, rather than being vague when it comes to, if you really do have those meaning of life type stakes, put it in specific words, what they are, what your characters need to do. I think, you don't need to list every publication that you've been in. It's fine to obviously list any, awards that you've won or accolades. And that would typically happen like in the last section of the query letter where you're introducing yourself as the author. It's fine to do that, but I would say don't do it at the expense of taking up space that could be used for your book that you're trying to pitch. We don't need a huge giant paragraph with, every writing contest that you've taken an honorable mention in, if it's going to eat up word count from like your amazing book. And then the other thing that I've always seen that sometimes people don't do is they don't personalize it to the agent that they're pitching. Every agent has on their website what they're looking for. And it's worth taking the time to, look that up and make sure that they're actually repping what you're trying to pitch to them, make sure it's a good fit, but also include that in your query letter. Say, hey, I saw on your manuscript wish list that you're looking for, alien love stories, and like my book fits the bill because it's an alien love story, whatever. So yeah, definitely personalize it. I think they can tell when you're just blasting off generic query letters into agent space. So if you can make it seem like you've put some thought into it, that definitely helps.
Right. So, and it seems like because your tagline or log line, it's quite short, really. And you've told us everything in the one line. It's this woman and she's made this relationship with this octopus. And so then see what I mean? Oh,
sorry. I was just gonna say, I'm assuming you went on beyond that little line in the query though, right? It went beyond sort of,
right.
I mean, you don't have to give us word for word, but you developed it a little beyond that.
Oh yeah, for sure. So I think it went something like, Marcellus considers himself a captive prisoner in the Soul Bay Aquarium. He wouldn't lift one of his 8 arms for his human captors until he meets the cleaning lady. And then next paragraph was, Tova is a 70-something widow who is, she likes to clean to keep busy, and that's why she took this job at this aquarium. And she's been keeping busy ever since, the 1980s when her son disappeared. That's her way of coping, is keeping busy. And then, so that's kind of paragraph 1. Paragraph 2, I think paragraph 3 then lays out the stakes. Marcellus learns information that can help Tova, and he has to impart that information to her before it's too late. Definitely adding in the high stakes, the sense of time running out. Yeah, and that was it.
And
That's
but
really
you don't reveal how he finds out or that's just like read the book and find out, right?
You look and find out. Yep.
And then it's just your introduction to you and stuff.
Now some agents will request a synopsis as well. And that's where you give away the ending. You basically lay out the major plot points. And if they want to read that, then if they want to know how, they can read that, or they can, or they'll read the book. So.
Did you end up with the agent that you went with? Did you end up having to do a synopsis and the book? Did you just send the book? Just curious.
I don't remember whether I sent her a synopsis or not. I think I sent her the query letter in the first chapter. And it's kind of funny. This was in November 2020, late October, early November 2020. And so I had, so I had sent this out and got the request back that she wanted the full manuscript, but it was literally the Monday before election day in that election. And I was just like, we don't know if the world is ending. Like, I can't even, I'm so stressed out. Like, I can't even think about anything other than, is our country going to exist in the future? Like, it was just, the headspace that I think a lot of people were in then was just like, it was a time, man. And so I didn't send it because I was just like, I can't send this out right now. Like, I'm too, no one is reading a book right now. Like, it's, the world is ending. And so I waited a couple days, and apparently she and her assistant had this octopus watch going on in their office. Like, has she sent it yet? It's not here yet. Like, do we need to follow up?
Wow.
And so I finally did send it. And then I think it was like a matter of days. And she had, got back to me and wanted to have the phone call that every writer dreams about having. So it was, it
Now,
happened quickly.
Did she then, we're going off track a little bit, but then did she work with you to edit the novel before you sent it out? Or was the editor somebody that came in more on the publishing end? How did that all work? Was it ready to go when you sent it to her?
I thought it was ready to go, but it was not, of course. Different agents, I think, operate differently. Some are very hands-off. Some are very hands-on. I would say my agent, Kristen Nelson, is kind of in the middle. We did do a pretty substantial edit before we went on submission. She had me cut out an entire point of view, which was absolutely the right thing to do, which ended up really changing the structure of the last few chapters quite a bit. And it was the right call. Like, I don't know how I didn't see it, but so we did quite a bit. She had really good suggestions. I had at one point, I wanted a couple of the other animals in the aquarium talked back, and she was just like, no, too far. You have to know where the line is when you're doing this kind of weird type of fiction. And she was absolutely right about that too. So she had some really great changes that we made before we went out to the publishers.
Nice. Yeah, I think, again, reading it for the kind of market that it's going to be, successful in, I agree that you couldn't have too many voices in this kind of book, Yeah. So that was a smart call for sure. Wow. Elizabeth, you have any other questions?
Not really. That's been really, really, thorough and great. And I think most agents, give some editing, some more, some less, some too much, some they're not writers, they're agents. So there's got to be that, but they should be able to really clarify your work for you, which it sounds like you got. So that's great. like
Yeah, I
say,
mean, that's their job to know what they can sell. So, it's very, I think, a lot of us who do, art and creative things, it's a shift in mindset to think about your work as a product. And that, for me has been one of the more challenging things of moving from, writing as this fun little hobby to like, okay, this is going to be my career. Is that, when they're making these changes, they're making it so that it can sell. Like that's the goal. And sometimes that is a little bit, I think, difficult for writers to make that mind shift. It can be a little uncomfortable.
yeah, I know I've actually, in talking to one of my recent publishers, he was just talking about the book he did before mine, and it was like, this guy wouldn't listen to anything, they gave him edits and he rejected them, everything. And it's like, I don't ever want to work with him again. So there's that too.
Yeah. Yeah. Once you go and traditional publishing anyway, it goes to the agent, it's a product, and, authors do have final say. I remember that was very much emphasized to me, that, this is my work and it's a discussion. It's a two-way street. It's not just, being handed down changes from, the publishing gods or whatever. But I think you have to keep in mind that they do know what will sell, and it's a product.
Well, it's a great product. I know
Yeah.
it's going to do really well. So exciting.
Well, thank you.
Congratulations.
Yes,
Thanks.
congratulations, Shelby.
That's
So
so
exciting.
great. And thank you so much for talking with us. You've given us so many wonderful hints, and not just stuff to think about and ponder and everything. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
And
Thank you for
now
having
we go on to the best thing we learned this week, which I think you have a lot of. So I'm going to start because, I do. And so the best thing I learned this week was also Oregon is taking all its sewage and turning it into green energy. It's a sort of a complicated procedure, but it's the byproduct of sewage, and through various techniques, they can actually change poop to power. And
Is that their motto? Poop to power?
power.
Great
Oh,
motto.
gosh. My
And-
6-year-old would love that.
So that's my good news.
That's
Poop to
really
power.
cool.
And if Oregon can do it, every place else can. right?
We need t-shirts, poop to power. That's great. So I was doing my usual Google search for cool things, and I found one. The Royal Society of Open Science Journal, I think that's what it's called, sorry, Society, had a professor who studied mushrooms and has determined that mushrooms talk and this is the part that gets me. I mean, Elizabeth and I love mycelium, and we love the whole network and all of that, and written stuff about that. But he has determined that they have a vocabulary of 50 words. And I'm like, 15 to 20 words being the core vocabulary. So they spike with this electrical impulses when they come to food sources like wood, that spikes. And they had a whole thing about how long the letters were, an average, like English, I'm like, I don't quite understand the word thing. I do think they communicate. And I do think that's awesome that they're kind of coming up with it. And other scientists are like, well, we need more study on this because this is kind of wacky. But I love the mushrooms speak 50 words.
Well, I mean, the mushrooms speak, I have no doubt of. I mean, I'm completely there. But the fact that not only do they only have 50 words, but we could even translate their words into our words and say how many there were.
Yeah. I know the impulse that they could take those impulses and go, well, this one's this long and this one's this. Those are words. And why are we trying to make it words? Why are we trying to make it? See, Shelby, like you were saying about using an octopus to look at how weird humans are. Why are we trying to make it into sort of a human? But anyway, I thought that was cool, though, that they have discovered that.
It is. It is there's, some friends tell me, vegetarians upset because plants have feelings, it's like vegetarians all over the world are going crazy because now they're saying plants have feelings and vegetarians are angry. And I was like, I don't know, somehow this whole thing seems weird.
Shelby, what do you want to tell us that was cool this week?
Oh gosh, I feel like I learned so much random stuff from my kids. My kids are 6 and 8, and they're just constantly asking me questions that I don't know the answer to, and then I have to go find out the answer so that we can all look it up together. One thing that came up, did you know that humans have tongue prints?
Did you say
That makes sense, but
Tongue
no.
prints, like we have fingerprints, we have
Okay.
tongue prints. I learned that after a fascinating anatomy research session over breakfast.
And each tongue print is unique.
Yes, you could tongue print someone. You could, in theory, tongue print a criminal.
You know, an ice cream cone, but then you can get it to the lab really quick.
Well, it makes me think of like,
Yeah,
the kid that gets the tongue stuck to the telephone pole. Like,
Right.
Yeah. Oh, and then they change their tongue print. I suppose you could, change it.
Right, do that. Be easier.
Especially if you're a cannibal or something and you're, killing people or chewing people, you might want to get rid of your tongue print.
I mean, it gives a whole new dimension to like when you burn your tongue on a hot slice of pizza or something. Like, are you actually changing your tongue print? I don't know.
And
And does it matter?
Yeah,
Does
maybe
it matter?
cut off tongues and keep them in the fridge. And then when you do a crime, you put the other person's tongue there so
Tongue
they can
print.
get it. Yeah.
Or all the technology that requires fingerprints, or like your new phone where you look in your eyes, you can stick your tongue on. Lovely.
Lovely, good. And you'll wet your electrical equipment at the same time as get your, like, you've wet this. I know, but it needed my tongue print to get in. Also, I wonder if you like get tongues from other animals and carry them around, do a print, and then it's like, there was a cow at the scene of this crime. So yeah, that's a great one.
That's pretty cool. Well, thank you so much again, Shelby, for coming and playing with us. We had a
My
great time
pleasure.
talking to you.
Yeah, it's so exciting. I mean, I have had a love affair with cephalopods for, wow, a long time ago, because I had a interaction with a cuttlefish.
Oh, cool.
I'd been watching some videos, and then I was in that actually showed like different symbols they do with their tentacles. And I was underwater and I saw these two cuttlefish acting out this mating dance, and I went and poked one and and it did it back to me. It did this.
Whoa.
I know. So that was just like, I mean, it changed my life. It did. I just went up gasping for air because I was just free diving. And then I was like, never eating another one of those things.
Yeah, I remember traveling in when I was in my 20s, like, the young kid, like backpacking trips through Southeast Asia. And that was a big tins of cuttlefish in every store. And yeah, I can't eat those. They're smart.
Well, yeah. It was living in Korea when I had that thing happen, and they were everywhere, and I was eating them until it talked to me, and then I was like, no, can't do this anymore.
So it says, don't eat us, don't eat us.
Right, that's probably what it's saying. Don't eat me. I will give you indigestion. Indigestion.
Exactly.
So I'm really I loved your short stories. I'm really looking forward to reading your book. And
Oh, thank you so much.
And also thank you, Maria Korloff, for directing us, and Sydney Levinson for editing all our stuff for us.
Yes, we could not do it without the two of you. And if you like our video, please go and check the little like mark, and be sure to subscribe to our channel and hit the notification button so you don't miss any episodes that come up. And if you want to support MetaStellar, you can help us publish more original content by going to the Patreon page and, opening your wallet a little bit. And none of that money goes to The team is all volunteers. It just goes to the writers to pay them so that we can get more original fiction. So thank you so much, everyone, for joining us. And we'll see you next time. And thank you, Shelby, again.
Thank you.
Thank
Bye,
you.
everyone.
Bye.